CSB like when you started working here?
Okay, well, the most obvious thing was that it was much smaller. And it was probably about 400 students, and now what is it, 2,000 or more than that? And so just if you can imagine only 400 bennies around campus, it's a very different situation. And it was almost all in the main building. People lived there and the classes were there. What is HAB was the high school, and Ricardo was the high school dorm, where my office is, was the high school dorm. That closed down, I don't know, probably about 1990 or something like that, or even maybe earlier than that. And it was just a really, it felt like a rural, small campus. And when I had my job interview, I went out there and parked in the parking lot. All the faculty was nuns, with the exception of 2 or 3 other lay men. And there were no men's bathrooms except one on the main floor of the main building. Nobody knew where it was, because the sisters didn't know where the men's bathroom was. Also, the sisters didn't get paid, and I was desperate to get paid because I had to pay rent and stuff like that. But I'd ask them, how do I get paid? And they said, we don't know. We never get paid.
Oh.
So there's that. But so when I came for my interview, I parked in the parking lot, and I came back after the interview and I got a ticket. And the ticket said, if you are a student, please go to such and such an office. If you are a faculty, please go to another office. If you are a visitor, please enjoy your visit. And there was no fine or anything associated with it. It was just a nice little note.
Wow.
So it was like that, and then the students were, there were so few of them that, you know, St. John's was about 2,000 and St. Ben's was like 400. And then what happened is St. Ben's started to grow like double every year, and it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And I believe it's bigger than St. John's now. And so it's just been an amazing kind of change that I've been able to see in the course of my time. As I think I mentioned to you before, where the science building is and the library, they built trailer houses there for the students to live in, because the growth was happening so quickly, there was no place for them to live. And so they moved in, I don't know, 30 trailers, and they'd have, I think, 4 to 8 people living in a trailer. It was pretty rowdy over there in the trailer park, like you maybe might imagine.
Yeah. Did they used to have barbecues?
They had barbecues outside all the time, and you could smell the barbecue smoke and the marijuana smoke wafting over the place. And, you know, it was just pretty, and you know, there were a lot of guys over there too, so it was just a sort of place to live and party and whatnot.
Sure.
So I don't know what else you want to know. Classes were, there used to be a home and community service department, which would be what might be called home ec, and that doesn't exist anymore. There used to be a horsemanship center for women only, where women would ride horses and jump horses and things like that. They had all the like horse riding outfits, and they'd show up in class in those. Oh, here's a good one. The main building was also living space, and I used to teach 8 o'clock composition. It was called Rhetoric to 11, where they had to do 10 papers a semester plus a research paper. So it was 1 paper a week. And sometimes there were no guys in the class, and it was 8 o'clock in the morning, so people that lived on the 3rd and 4th floor of the, what was called the rotunda, would come down in bathrobes and slippers and hadn't brushed their teeth. It was kind of like one day I was getting sick, and it was not a good time to be in class.
Yeah.
And then, you know, when guys started being in class, then everybody dressed up more.
I would too.
And they didn't wear their pajamas to class, but they didn't seem to care about me. So, is that what you want to know? Do you want to know anything else?
Well, go ahead. What about like extracurriculars stuff?
Like what went on outside of the classroom?
Yeah.
Okay, well, there were no sports teams back in those days that the women played, and that all came with Title IX. So that's been a huge change, by the way, and I think it's been a great change. And I love Title IX, and I love all the stuff that happened because of it. And I'm a big fan of Blazer athletics, so I go to a lot of the games. But that didn't exist before. Outside of class, it was a lot more kind of religious atmosphere, because more of the faculty was nuns, and at St. John's it was almost all monks.
Sure.
And at St. Ben's it was all nuns. In fact, a lot of the nuns, that the buildings are named after were teaching back in the day that I started. I was telling a story, there was a nun named Sister Mary Patrick, who was an Irish nun, and she used to be a hospital administrator in Salt Lake City, and then as she got older she came back here and she became a building superintendent of the HAB. And when she died, she saved everything. Like, you wouldn't believe, she saved everything. And like, for instance, she would save old stale coffee and serve it the next day, or the next day, or the next day until it was gone, and then she'd make more coffee. And they found in her possession all these things that she'd saved, including a box that was labeled "string too short to use." And in the box was string that was too short to use. And I do not understand it, but nevertheless, it was very different in that sense. And I think if you could have known some of those nuns, you'd have found them quite lovable and interesting people. And then also, there were some nuns that were extremely high-powered individuals, like Sister Johanna Becker was one of the drafters of the UN Human Rights Statement, and she's just she's now at St. Benedict Center in a wheelchair, but she was a dynamic, powerful person, and one of the leading art history experts in the country. And that's another thing that we used to have, is some of these sisters were extremely distinguished people, and I knew a lot of them. They're all either dead now or too old to be teaching. But so that was a transition that I got to see. I don't want to get too serious, but when Maureen and I, well, Maureen's been here for a number of years too, my wife, we always knew that we would see the end of the Benedictine sisters, because you could just see the handwriting on the wall. They were all getting older, and there weren't any new ones, and and many of them are close friends of ours, so we just knew that that was going to happen in our lifetime, and they're doing it very gracefully, but it's now kind of, there aren't too many sisters involved. I don't know if any of you even know any sisters. There aren't too many on the faculty anymore, maybe 5 or 6 at the most. So ask me another question, unless you want to know more information.
Well, what else do you know? I mean,
What
did you
else
ever
do I
hear
know?
any stories about students talking about their lives outside of school, or?
Well, all the time.
Share some.
Yeah.
How different is it now than then?
Sure. Yeah.
I don't know.
Was it still a huge party scene back then, or
Well-
not really, or how did that?
Well, when I used to play in a band, we'd play at house parties, and I don't even know what it's like now because I haven't done that for a number of years, but there used to be party houses in town. I think there still are. I think you guys told me that there are. I don't know which ones they are anymore. They might be the same houses with different names, like, is there a dugout? No, see.
Not that I know.
Okay, I think it depends on who lives
Yeah.
in the house. Like the story I told earlier about the guy that got run over by a train, they had a house that was called the Depot, I think, and all the guys that lived there were way into trains. Is that still around?
I think so.
Okay,
I
so
heard of
the
it.
Depot is still there. The Youth Hostel? No. Sal's West?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so stories from parties? You want stories from parties? Okay.
Well,
Anything.
anything
All right.
interesting.
So there was this great big guy that was like 320-pound Bahamian guy who claimed he was going to beat up one of the members of my band.
Oh.
And we started playing one night, and he came and stood right in front of us, and he started going like this. And then we started playing a Bob Marley song, and he liked it, so he started dancing. And pretty soon he put his arms around the guy he was going to beat up and says, "I'm not going to beat you up anymore. I like your music, man." But then he said he was going to slash our tires too, but he never did. I'm trying to think of his name. It was like, it was a Moose or something like that. I can't remember. He was a big guy. Big guy.